Welcome to the Barry Podcast, an unofficial show covering the hit HBO show, Barry. I'm one of your hosts, Jamie G. Esquire, the fifth. And while I don't know Taekwondo, I am a master of drunken boxing.
Two at once? Neverling, do you think that's a good idea?
Don't worry, it gives him power.
I'm here with the co-host, Magnum Mills, to talk about the 13th episode of Barry, titled Ronny Lily.
I am Magnum Mills, and I've got my hands on the wheel very firmly. Might not even be able to remove them. Thank you for checking out the Barry Podcast. Find us wherever you get your pods. Find us on social media at Barry Podcast. Find us on YouTube by searching for Barry Podcast, or you can go to joeblowfootballshow.com. Brings you right to our YouTube channel. If you like what you see, like what you hear, please remember to comment, rate, like, follow, subscribe. You don't have to do them all. If you want to, you are a goddamn saint. But even just doing one of those things helps us out a lot because it helps other people find the show, and we really appreciate it. Seriously, thank you.
We will be spoiling the events of Ronny Lily and all previous episodes, all 12 of them that came before this particular episode of Barry. We will not be spoiling the events of future episodes of Barry during our episode discussion. Towards the end, we will have a spoiler section where we do discuss future episodes and events as well as any news about Barry. So don't you worry, we'll let you know when we get there, and you can bail out if you want. Mills, it is time for the details. Starting now.
This is season 2, episode 5, titled Ronny Lily. Originally aired Sunday, April 28th, 2019, with an estimated 2.03 million viewers in the United States tuning in live, still enjoying that lead-in from Game of Thrones. Directed by Bill Hader, this is the 4th episode of Barry that he had directed, and the first since he directed the first 3 episodes of the series. Written by Alec Berg and Bill Hader, with Teofik Kolade credited as the executive story editor. And the short plot synopsis is an encounter that Barry never could have predicted has surprising effects. It does.
And before we get into our recap discussion of this episode, it's time to give you our overall thoughts on Ronny Lily. This episode was an absolute heater. Cannot get over how, just first of all, the perfect balance between how Barry looks dressed up trying to hide himself and this insane, intense, ridiculous fight that pursues. Just incredible, kind of opposite end of the spectrum here. I just love that they carry it through the entire episode. This is one of my all-time favorite episodes. Action, funny, wild out, and they ride it through with its own kind. It's almost its own thing inside of a vacuum. Like it's, we talked about this a little bit. It's almost like this would be a good one to show somebody without spoiling it. There's really just the Loesch plot line, but I love this one. Absolutely love it. And just real quick before I pass it over to you, rewatching this was the episode where I began to fall in love with Barry. I liked Barry a lot throughout season 1 and was kind of in it for season 2. When this episode dropped, I was like, this show is this. It took it to another level for me.
Yeah, I mean, to put it in Ronny terms, it was a kick that knocked you like right through a door or something like that. I was blown away the first time I saw it. And like you said, I think it holds up incredibly well. I mean, everything about the episode is top notch. It looks great. It sounds great, which is kind of crazy because if I remember right, there's no music that's non-diegetic. So it means any music you hear just, comes over car radios or stereos or whatever. There's no score, anything like that. Some of the best stunt work I've seen on television, period, especially for a show that's in this budget range. They don't have a Game of Thrones budget or a Last of Us budget or something like that. I think it's gripping, it's over the top violent, and it's hysterical. So, yeah, it's okay.
All right, Mills. I'm going to climb a tree here and hang out on the roof and watch you in a strange pose as you bring us into the episode.
Yeah, screw you, you little gargoyle. The episode opens with Ronny arriving at home with a 6-pack of Budweiser. He goes inside and begins to light a joint when he notices the window is open. He closes it and heads into his bedroom. As he smokes his joint, he turns around and sees Barry. Barry, who is rocking a full ski mask and goggles here, tells him that he was sent by Loesch to kill him, but he's not going to do that. He's going to need Ronny to stay with his family in Chicago for about a year. Barry will send him money, eventually. He's having trouble with his money right now. Barry actually points out Fuchs in the car outside and notes that Fuchs thinks that he's in here killing Ronny. They go into the next room to get a suitcase, and the room is filled with trophies. And I mean filled with trophies for Taekwondo. As he's packing his suitcase, Ronnie suddenly kicks Barry and appears to knock him out. Ronnie relights his joint and dials 911. Before he can say anything, Barry attacks him. They fight for a long time. Ronnie is obviously more skilled, but Barry lands a shot that fractures Ronnie's windpipe, and it takes its toll. Eventually, Ronnie collapses while beating Barry with nunchucks. And that's the sentence I just said because it happened in Barry. If Ronnie was a Ninja Turtle, he'd be Michelangelo, right? Like, he seems like a party dude, and he's got nunchucks. Total Michelangelo.
Yeah, all that was missing was the pizza and the cowabungas. But when they walk into, because Barry's just being so cool and chill, like, yeah, dude, it's gonna be okay. Chicago's not that long of a trip. They walk into that side room, and it's just in the way the camera angle was. At first, you just see a couple of trophies, but when it spins back around, you realize that the entire room, all four walls, covered with trophies, all the awards and accolades and medals, all hanging all over, and you're like, dude, that's when it's like, oh wow, this is about to go someplace. Like, that super great camera work here.
Absolutely. Yeah, that goes the direction of the show. And I think at this point, there's maybe one or two cuts in what we just talked about here. I mean, the camera really moves and follows everything. It's really great. And I love the way kind of Ronnie plays it. You don't really know if he's cool with this or not. He's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. And just the idea that he lights his joint back up before calling 911. And 911 probably would have, shown up, but whatever. We'll forgive that. And I did love Barry. He's got like an orange ski mask, ski goggles, gloves. I mean, he wore the gloves this time, but he might have overdone it with the orange ski mask. That's kind of noticeable, I feel.
Yeah, he stood out just a smidge, and he just looked so awkward and weird. It was just so perfect. I will say it was strange with the posters because like twice he got slammed up against the wall, and instead of like a poster like breaking or cracking, it just was like a piece of paper like falling out. So it was a weird, two weird posters there. But other than that, it was an incredible fight scene.
Yeah, and even a couple of decent dialogue lines here. The first one, when Barry walks in, he's like,
"Your name's Ronnie Proxon, right?"
Uh-huh.
Oh, good.
I mean, this is a little bit different Barry, right? We used to see him. He was notorious, Fuchs hated. He would do recon for 3 days.
Right.
You would think, I guess, an earlier version of Barry would have done a little bit of research and realized that Ronnie had this, Taekwondo skills. So maybe he would have approached it a little bit different. And Barry, I also too used to do Google Maps and Waze at the same time. But Waze is A, kind of crazy, and B, they changed up their whole interface, so it's a pain in the ass now. Can't use it anymore. I guess Barry thinks Ronnie's dead. He probably should have bothered to check that. But he begins to leave the house with his face exposed, and he runs into Ronnie's young daughter, Lily, as she's coming through the front door. She rushes to find her dad, and Barry puts his mask back on and goes to find her. Barry doesn't have to look for long because she finds Barry and attacks him. She more than holds her own against Barry. In addition to kicks and punches, she hits him with beer bottles, a can of Snoop, and she stabs him in the back multiple times. Then she heads outside and starts running through yards. And Jamie G, parkour or what, dude?
Some hardcore parkour, dude. She was
the last one over the hedge where she does like the flip thing was wild.
The way she bounced off walls and stuff, man. I mean, she was flying Liu Kang style from Mortal Kombat, dude. Like she was nuts, man.
I mean, she was not of this world. That's all I can. And shout out the actress. She's does a lot of stunt work. She's actually the daughter of like a very well-known stunt coordinator and everything. So not super surprising. But man, dude.
Well, the one thing I didn't, it was like, dude, Barry took a shot, a full swing from a cast iron pan across the face, fine. But what would have really made me kind of grind my gears a little bit here was a can of beans to the face and like nothing. Like that would, oh my God.
Your nose
like
is broken. Your nose is broken. Bare minimum.
At best case
maybe
scenario.
A fractured orbital bone, some teeth could be in play. And yeah, the cast iron joint to the head. Yeah, but the great part of the visual here, I don't know if they meant to match it with the orange ski mask and what they went away, but Barry basically has like a goatee of blood for the rest of the episode. And it's very specific, I guess, because of the mask, but it legitimately looks like a goatee of blood. So,
right.
Yeah, everything in that was great. And like she's starts out in the 3-point stance or whatever, and then she just leaps at him like Wolverine. I have to imagine there's some CGI involved or something there, but I swear to God, she covers 8 feet when she jumps at Barry, and it's just it's an animal. It's amazing. And another minor quibble here. She definitely stabs Barry twice, but we later see he only has the one stab wound. So what do you think? Was that a production error, or did she actually, she's so good she stabbed him in the same place twice?
Dude, I'm gonna say that she's so good. She because that was a big gash. Did you see how big that gash was?
Yeah, you could have run for 200 yards between that gap. That was a
Yeah, that was a big old gap, buddy. I will say that I liked how the blood slowly started kind of going more and more and more. That was kind of cool how they did that. He leaves the house and you kind of see like, okay, he's just got this piece, but then you start to see it running, and before you know it, man, that stuff's it's out of control. So I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah. Really, the only question here is why did she run away? I think she had Barry at that point. I think he was almost down for the count, and she just kind of. I mean, it was really cool parkour, but I think Mortal Kombat turns, as you mentioned earlier, she should have just finished him. I would like to see what she has for a fatality.
Nice.
After that, Barry goes outside, makes his way to the car where Fuchs is waiting. Barry tells Fuchs that he's hurt badly and he needs to go to the hospital. He also lies and says that Ronnie's dead, or maybe he just thinks that Ronnie's dead. We're not sure. Fuchs says Barry can't go to a hospital, so they go to a drugstore instead. Fuchs goes in to purchase a needle and thread, and a Red Bull, and some corn chips. Barry doesn't want anything else. Barry gets a call from Loach, who wants to know if it's done. Barry hangs up without answering, and he passes out, and the screen fades to black. Fuchs sometimes seems very smart, and then in this case pulls right up in front of the joint, puts the hazards on, and Barry's just covered in blood in the passenger seat. Not the greatest look, right? I mean, Fuchs is a little right on the hospital thing, probably not so. If he's going to be cautious, why not take? It was what Mike Irwinshire would call half measure. I feel
It was definitely a half measure because you got a guy, you don't want to take him to the hospital because you're worried about questions, but then you pull up not even in a parking space, and you're being so blatantly obvious. And I feel bad for Barry here a little bit just because he's trying to explain to everyone how bad a shape he's in. He's dying, and everyone's like, yeah, but the job's done, right? Like nobody cares about Barry.
What do you want me to get?
Needle and thread.
Okay.
For stitches.
I understand.
Because I'm dying.
Yeah, needle and thread.
the idea.
Then they're yelling.
You had
back
one
and
job,
forth.
man. You had one job, Fuchs. Needle and thread, one job. But get your corn chips or whatever.
They come in. Those corn chips might come in handy a little bit later. We'll find out.
When we fade back in, Barry is having a dream about being a soldier as a group of military personnel walk across the desert towards some other people, and some of them seem to know each other. He snaps out of it and finds himself still in the car with Fuchs. Fuchs begins to dress Barry's knife wound and finds out that Ronnie's daughter gave it to him. He tells Barry that he's sorry that he had to kill the child, and Barry tells him that he didn't kill her. She ran away. Fuchs immediately puts the medical care on hold and starts the car. They have to find her, and they have to kill her now. What does Fuchs think of Barry that he automatically assumed Barry killed Lily? I mean, he thought that of Barry, right? He thought he was capable of killing a child. I think that says something.
I think it shows how out of tune he is with actually kind of where Barry's matured to and where Barry ultimately wants to be in his life. Barry needed to know he was taking out bad guys like he was if he was a soldier, right? You can't really make him believe that when you're killing a kid.
Yeah, and Fuchs kind of explains that he thinks that we were all put on this earth to kill each other, more or less. So I guess that explains a fair amount of how Fuchs operates, or his modus operandi, or whatever you want to call it. And I don't know if we mentioned it before, but that wound was extra gnarly on Barry's back there when we see it. Like you said, it is just, yeah, you don't know that Fuchs has that kind of sewing skill. It really did look like he got hit with a goddamn cleaver.
Yes, it did. It was gross. It was open. It was oozing. It was. Oof. You can see, and shout out too, because the seat, the car seat, soaked in blood too. So that was kind of a nice little touch.
Yeah, that would have been what Frank Reynolds called a botch job there. You would need your blood bucket for that. After that, we see Fuchs and Barry driving wildly through Ronnie's neighborhood looking for Lily. They eventually spot her sitting on a curb. Fuchs tells Barry to kill her, and Barry refuses. She's not of this earth. Fuchs decides to get her himself, despite Barry's warning. Fuchs tries to sweet talk her, but she quickly runs away, scurries up a tree, and jumps onto a nearby roof and does a little bit of a gargoyle pose. Fuchs goes back into the car, tells Barry that yes, she is not of this earth, and he ponders their next move. As he talks, Barry passes out again.
You're being creepy as hell. Trying to, would you?
I don't want to sound like a creep, but you want to get in the car with me and my friend? I got corn nuts. See right here, they look like they. No, I got so don't run away, dude.
That is like quintessentially everything you're taught as a child to avoid and run and scream for help from. That is the definition of creepy, Fuchs.
Would it have worked better if he had ice cream or something? Something more kid friendly, possibly. I don't know that it would have. She seemed like a smart egg, but on the other hand, why did she just give up and sit? He probably thinks her dad's dead. From a realistic standpoint, I understand she's in shock and anything is possible. But I'm just trying to get in the logic of the show. She seems so hyper competent one minute, and the next minute she's a kid. Again, probably very realistic, but maybe even more realistic than someone buying corn nuts in this day and age. Who knows? They still make those? Is that a thing?
You got to give it up for Fuchs, man. He had a taste for him, dude. He had a taste for him.
And she does the parkour kind of thing up the tree and onto the house. You see that in one shot. They did it. I believe there were some practical things for her to grab onto a harness or whatever that they erased with CGI. Still a very cool effect. And I was trying to think of anything it could remind me of. The only thing I can think of, it's from it's an Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode called A Cricket's Tale, where a dude Cricket steals a loaf of bread, the shopkeeper is chasing him. And this is not a dude you think would be capable of doing physical things. And he parkours his way up a fire escape and all this crazy shit or whatever. It was so unexpected. It's the only reference I can come up with. Even though we knew she could do things, the way she scurries up that tree and then gets on that roof is just amazing.
It really is. It makes it look so easy, Mills, and I would die the second I tried. It hurt. It made my back hurt just looking at it.
Yeah, I do that thing where I just run into it in the head about the tree, and that would be the end of it. Like when they did the parkour cold open on The Office, that's how my parkour would look. After that, Barry is back in the same dream as earlier. All the soldiers and other people eventually pass each other, and Barry sees Fuchs dressed in a black suit. Barry wakes up, still in the car with Fuchs, and now it's dark outside. Fuchs has stitched Barry up while he was passed out, and the stitch job is not great. And Lily is still perched on the roof of the house outside watching them. Barry quickly pops the stitches, and Fuchs uses super glue to close the wound. Fuchs suggests maybe getting one of Hank's guys with a rifle to shoot her down, and he finds out that Barry has been training Hank's guys. Any thoughts on kind of Barry's dream here? What do you think that was the symbolism was there? Was that kind of a death thing and people seeing their loved ones again? Was Fuchs the devil? I mean, he's got the black suit, the slick back hair. Any thoughts on the I guess you'd have to call it a dream sequence. I don't know what else you'd call it.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that like everyone was celebrating and seeing their family, and it was almost like Barry was so excited to see someone there that he loves, but then it was Fuchs, and so it was almost like a kind of like a letdown a little bit, I think, and but definitely an interesting scene in terms of like how everyone was so happy seeing their loved ones, and then he was left with Fuchs. Take that how you will.
And any thoughts on Fuchs kind of being so furious about getting cut out of this heroin job? Is that because Fuchs doesn't have anything else? He seems kind of insulted that, oh, you're doing contract work without me. I don't know. I mean, is this, we saw Fuchs, I guess, try to do it on his own, but are you surprised that he was so anxious to get back in bed with the Chechens or whatever?
I think that Fuchs just is like, you can't cut me out of this. I'm the management. I do everything here. And Fuchs is always thinking about how can he make money, right? And he knows that he can screw over somebody here to make money and use Barry to get it done. So I think that's where it's coming from.
That makes sense. And I mean, Fuchs, Steve Root obviously killing it here. Like right after Barry pops his stitches, he's like, I got something for you. And he kind of drums on his back right near the wound, which is obviously you don't want to be touched there. That was a lot of super glue. I'm pretty sure Barry will never, like, part of that shirt will be part of Barry for the rest of his life. And when Fuchs says he had something that'll make you feel real good, I assumed he had, Percocet or liquid Novocaine or something else. I did not. You could have given me a lot of answers and I would not have come up with the super glue. I didn't think that was where we're going. And even when he did it, I couldn't tell until Barry was like, is that super glue?
My thought exactly is that shirt is never coming off. It's going to be
it was all over his back. He spread it all.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, months. That'll take a little more, some nail polish remover or something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, Jamie G, let's be honest here. Are you going to walk away from an army and heroin? I don't think so.
How could you?
Yeah, you really couldn't. As Fuchs grabs his phone, there's a thud on the roof of the car. It's Lily, and they try to throw her off the roof by accelerating quickly and then slamming on the brakes. It doesn't work, and Lily manages to sneak into the backseat of the car. She bites Fuchs on the cheek, and he can't get her off because he superglued his hands to the steering wheel. Barry refuses to shoot her as she bites off a chunk of Fuchs's cheek and runs off. And while she runs off, she gives a pose. Her face is covered in blood, almost in the same pattern as Barry's, and she looks like something out of The Walking Dead or what have you.
When she yells and screams like ah! It was like a freaking
Yelp. It was like a yelp.
I mean, what do you call it? A feral mongoose, dude. I mean, that was some scary stuff, man. And I love the work here with just that scene with the bite, how hard that was to kind of like that was really well done. And then once it comes off, the sound and the look, they've done this a bunch of good times with Stephen Root with Fuchs's face, where Fuchs's face gets fucked up. And they do great paint work, and he rides with it.
Dude, that was a chunk, man.
It was a chunk.
Was a chunk. Fuchs just goading Barry to shoot her. I don't know why he can't get it through his head. Like he doesn't want it. Barry's just not going to shoot a kid. He's just like, no time to grow a heart, dipshit. But Barry's just not going to do it. I think maybe that's the line that Barry can't cross. But Fuchs also doesn't know much about kids. He talks to Lily like she's a puppy dog. Like, good girl. Right. Good girl.
And a girl.
Yeah, and Stephen Root is just fantastic here. You could maybe make the argument you actually see the car shake when she gets into the back seat, but whatever, it's worth it. I don't really care because it's such a fun scene. After that, Fuchs and Barry pull up in front of a supermarket. Barry goes in looking for something to dissolve the super glue that's got Fuchs stuck to the steering wheel. Barry is still covered in blood, and he gets some strange looks from an employee. He hears a wheezing sound, and he turns to see Ronnie standing just a few feet away from him. Barry tries to reason with Ronnie, but he's not having it. He causes a scene and attacks an employee. Everybody runs out of the store, and it's safe to assume that somebody is calling the cops. Maybe minor quibble here. I know that they've been in Ronnie's neighborhood for the whole episode, but the fact that he shows up here at this time is probably a touch too perfect, but also very, very awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a little bit of like, what are the odds? But dude, I'm glad they did, because this works so well.
Everything here is so good. When Barry approaches Ronnie, like,
I'm the guy that was in your house. Listen, I think we got off on the wrong foot, okay?
I'm pretty sure Ronnie recognized him right from Jump Street. And shout out Fuchs. Last time I heard somebody say paint thinner, nail polish remover, I don't give a fuck. That was a hell of a party. And obviously, Ronnie's not clearly at 100% because his throat's broken and he's stoned. Not a good combination.
One of the favorite lines of the episode.
And my guess is somebody, a writer or someone in the production department, who is a big Con Air fan, because over the PA, we hear How Do I Live, performed by Trisha Yearwood, as someone who worked in retail for a fair number of years. I can't believe they still play that song probably once an hour on whatever station that is, but they do. And shout out Ronnie, because he also skipped the hospital, just like Fuchs and Barry. And dude, Ronnie, I don't know what it is, but he beat the shit out of that store clerk. Like he took him down, and then he went in on him. I was surprised that, because you didn't get the impression that Ronnie was that violent or something, but you also figure like he might have had brain damage or something, right? He didn't even know later he goes to like do this cute, like a Mortal Kombat style flying kick at Barry, and he misses him by like 3 yards. It takes out a hole. So maybe he doesn't really, he's quite, not quite all there at that point. In the next scene, we go outside and Fuchs sees everybody rushing out of the store, and he notices Barry and Ronnie fighting through the window. He desperately tries to free his hands from the steering wheel, and all he does is succeed into backing up into a cop car, but he manages to speed away. Barry and Ronnie continue to fight, and Ronnie gains the upper hand. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Loach appears and shoots Ronnie. Loach tells Barry to drop his gun and appears like he's getting ready to shoot Barry, but Ronnie pops back up and takes Loach out with a devastating roundhouse kick to the head. Ronnie approaches Barry, and just when it looks like Barry might be in real trouble, Ronnie is shot dead by the police who have just arrived. Not only is Ronnie dead, Loach is dead as well. In the confusion, Barry manages to sneak out the back unnoticed. Love the episode, love everything. There is 0% chance in hell that those cops didn't see Barry. He was standing. The one dude, if you look at it slowly, is looking at Barry.
0% chance. The one kind of thing with this show is sometimes they kind of yada 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 Barry's escapes and just all the stars align and he's the luckiest guy in the world with some of this. This one was tough because it's like, oh, dude, no way. No way. Especially because they could see inside. It was floor to ceiling glass. I mean, come on, you can see inside the store. Like, this didn't happen deep in the store. This happened right in the front.
And I think the reason it's tough for me to just forgive is because he was on the ground. If Barry had just stayed on the ground, it actually would have worked, because then the cops wouldn't have seen him maybe through the window because he's lower than the window, and he would have been lower than the displays when they shot Ronnie because he was standing up. But for some reason, they had Barry stand up before then. If they would have just let Barry on the ground, you get the idea. He maybe could have scooted away, right? And stayed underneath the displays, but they have him standing up and you can clearly see it. It's not like they could have, they had to do it and there was no other way. If they would have just had Barry being crouched down low, kind of like he did when he popped the Chechens in the season 1 finale through the garage there, it would have worked. So I think that has to be just a production mistake. Nothing else really makes sense unless you want to get really deep into it and Barry died at Ronnie's house. I tried. That's how deep I went into it. I tried to come up with like a unifying theory of Barry, where Barry actually died in the first fight in Ronnie's house when he gets knocked out. Everything after this in the entire show isn't real. It doesn't track enough. I tried, but that's how hard I tried, dude. I really cared.
I appreciate you going down that rabbit hole for us.
I've been down a lot of rabbit holes, my friend. And nice kind of parallel here. You actually see Ronnie basically wound up with the exact same wound on his cheek that his daughter gave to Fuchs. So I don't know. Again, there's that much attention to detail. And how about the Loach of it all? Do you really believe that kick was a death kick? I mean, it looked pretty devastating. I will say that.
It looked absolutely crippling. I mean, it was like, whoa. And you could just tell he just landed it. Is it enough to kill you? I don't know, but I've never been kicked by a full roundhouse by a Taekwondo, gold medalist. So I have no idea. My guess is it probably could snap a neck or something.
I mean, Ronnie was completely a badass throughout. You could definitely believe that. And especially if the way he beat the shit out of that clerk, he's not in his right mind. He's just in kill mode or whatever, and pure fight or flight. Overall, was this a satisfying end to the whole Loach plot line here? It seemed a little abrupt, right?
Yeah, I didn't expect him to die like that. I mean, I guess they kind of thought they went all the way they could with it, and they needed to move on. But yeah, it did seem a little abrupt.
Kind of a light thing. It's not like what happens next, because Barry goes out the back and then somehow walks past all of the cops in LA. I mean, every fucking cop in LA. There's copters. There's a fucking news van. And somehow Fuchs, who just hit and run with a cop car like 3 minutes ago, maybe 20 yards from there, is just parked waiting for
beeping.
Barry. It's
unfathomable.
Yeah. And Fuchs tells Barry, get in. They have to go. Barry looks at Fuchs. Then he looks at all the cops behind him. And the screen cuts to black as the episode ends. Again, dead horse, but there's no way. There's so many.
There's no way Fuchs was getting away from a hit and run. Number one.
Maybe if he kept going and they were responding to a shooting, so they prioritized, but not coming right back to the scene.
Beeping.
In the same parking lot.
In the same parking lot. I mean, Barry just like walks around it, like through a crime scene. No way, dude.
Yeah, even when he's going out the back of the store, you can see him through the aisles. Like he's not like trying to down. Like somebody would have saw him. You could see through the front window even. Yeah. So it is what it is. You have to penalize it a touch there. But my guess is they wanted that final shot where Barry has to make a choice: get arrested or go with Fuchs. They wanted that visual, so it all built to that. I get it's a cool visual, but I don't. You definitely have to maybe suspend your disbelief a little bit more than you'd like here.
Yeah, that brings us to the end of our recap. Now, before we go and hand out our awards, let's see what other people thought about this episode. Over on IMDb, Ronny Lily has a rating of 9.8. That makes it the highest rated episode of Barry out of the 24 episodes from their first 3 seasons. Mills, In your opinion, is this the best episode of Barry? Remember, no future spoilers.
I have to say it's probably not the most impactful episode of Barry, but it probably is the best. Maybe the craziest part is that it's just Barry and Fuchs here. This makes you think, what if they had just done this as a, kind of hit of the week show, or at least for a while, and there were just more kind of bottle episodes like this where it's just Barry and Fuchs trying to kill this crazy person or something like that. I think that could have been really fun. But that being said, there's probably no way they can do 8 episodes like this one per season. So yeah, probably, again, there's no NoHo Hank. So it's hard for me to say the best episode of Barry has no NoHo Hank in it, but it's probably the best episode of Barry. It's so good. Yourself?
It's way up there, dude. I would say it's definitely top 3. It's so unique. It's incredible. It was the one that I fell in love with the show on, but I'm not going to give it the highest rated, but I am going to put it in that top 3 sphere.
That's fair enough. I can agree with that. I think it's no doubt top 3. And what's not always no doubt, whether or not they have Gwen Stefani, are the titles of the episodes for Barry. Bill Hader himself has admitted it's not something that they really spend a lot of time on. And Ronny Lily is fine. In fact, I think it's the only reason we know Lily's name. It's never spoken on screen. But for something that can be considered the best episode of Barry, maybe you can have a little bit of a catchier title, right? Jamie G, any options for us?
I think they could have probably did something a little bit better with this, but I like Your Throat's Broken and You're Stoned. I think that would have been a really cool name for this one. And I could see it kind of being something that kind of fits with how they do titles.
Yeah, I had 2 fun ones, Like a Feral Mongoose, and If You Weren't Fucked Up Before, You Are Now. If you wanted to go on a more serious, note, and maybe one that fits more of the scheme they've used for season 2, I've got Trophy and Medals, The Little Gargoyle, What Are You, and Just Relax, okay?
That's great. Now it is time to hand out our awards for the episode. We'll start by each choosing our favorite quote or dialogue exchange from the episode. Dude, I got to give it up to Barry as, his kind of opening. I hate to do kind of the first scene here, but I love where he's just like,
He thinks I'm in here killing you. I'm not. Calling an audible right now. I'm just letting you know, when we get out there, he might seem a little confused, and you might see us argue. Just so you know, I got it under wraps, all right?
that whole thing just sets the tone for this episode. When you finally see him, dude, that just delivers so well. I absolutely love it.
I have to go with a more subtle moment. There are a couple of very good long exchanges, but there's not anything better, in my opinion, than when Fuchs gets back in the car and he tells Barry,
Okay, she's not human.
That's what I said,
I mean,
man.
she's something else. I
That's
don't know
what I
what.
told you, dude.
short but fucking sweet. Up next is our favorite moment or scene from Ronny Lily. It's my turn to go first. So you know what? I'm going to order for both of us, and I'm going to say that the favorite 2 scenes should be Barry versus Ronny and Barry versus Lily, with an honorable mention of Lily running away from Fuchs up the tree. Jamie G, what do you think? Something other than that, or do you prefer the Ronny scene or the Lily fight?
Oh my gosh, dude! It's to me, I can't. I mean, I guess I would probably maybe put just the Lily slightly over, but I'm seconding that.
That's why I'm
notion.
trying to.
That's
Yep,
what it
that's
is.
why I'm trying to help you out here, because I think those are pretty clearly in an episode with a ton of great moments. Because those are both great fights and also funny and entertaining. It's amazing. I mean, whoever did the stunt coordinator, they Marvel or Disney or somebody should be all over them at this point, I feel.
And actually, you know what? The show throughout kind of the first season and change here up to this point has surprised me and impressed me with how they do some of these action type scenes.
Yeah, this was a phenomenal episode in that respect. 100. I mean, overall as well, but especially from a stunt and an action standpoint, and how many of them were done in one take and everything. Extremely well done.
Exactly. That brings us to our Greek Freak of Assassins, which is our MVP of the episode. I guess it's my turn to go first here. Man, this is really hard, but I'm actually gonna give it to Lily. Like, she lived, she was undefeated. I know she lost her father, but she got revenge, dude. She caused pain that I don't think will go away for a long time to both to both Barry and Fuchs. And honestly, she should just be out there in the world, just like, I don't know, becoming like some sort of like mythical creature of the night that you don't want to mess with.
It's Lily. She's definitely the Greek freak of assassins. She's whatever she wants to be of assassins. I am there for the Lily spinoff where she is the queen of assassins or whatever she wants to be. And we're not world-class assassins. We're certainly not even Roddy T's Rotten Tomatoes, but we have to do our best to give a grade to Ronny Lily.
Because I'm the Fonz. Huh? Hey.
In honor of Henry Winkler, Gene Cousineau himself, we grade each episode of Barry on a scale of 1 to 10 Fonzies. Hey, I'm up first here. Man, there's no Hank. There are some plot holes towards the end. I still got to give it 9.9. Hey, it's such a good episode. I can't. We've sucked it off enough. I think it's been brought to completion at this point. Jamie G, round it off if you would with the courtesy reach around and give a grade to Ronny Lily.
I'm right there with you, just a smidge below that. I'm giving this bad boy 9.8 A's.
That brings us to the spoiler section. If you do not want to be spoiled on anything from future episodes, trailers, other news about the show, go ahead, check out now. Thanks again for checking out the Barry podcast. Please remember to do the like, follow, rate, comment, subscribe thing. Check back soon for our episode covering The Truth Has a Ring to It. That's the 6th episode of season 2. For everybody else, here is our spoiler discussion for Ronny Lily starting now. What do you think about the fact that it's only really Barry Fuchs with a side dish of loach here? Is that cool for you? It's really the only episode that follows that format.
It really is, but I think that they leaned hard into these kind of characters that were only in it for this time with Ronny and Lily, and I think that works. And I don't know, man. On an episode where I didn't get any Chechkin love, I didn't get any Bolivian love, I'm pleasantly surprised with how great it was.
So what do you think? Is there a version of this show that might have worked? Where it's kind of Fuchs being the manager, setting Barry up for hits. Maybe you don't get the acting class. It's more like a network show. Could that have possibly worked?
Yes. I don't know. It would have been a totally different show, but I think Fuchs and Barry are so good together. Yes. And it
would have been the version of Barry that can run for 7 or 8 seasons. Like on Showtime or something, I feel that's what they would have done. A lot, you could have maybe the same overall season plot arcs, but you'd only get the little bit of it, right? At the beginning and the end of each episode, kind of maybe one scene in the middle, and the rest would be a self-contained plot. A lot more how they shoot network shows these days and that kind of thing. But there's so much promise here. It's just, my guess is this had the highest budget of any episode for the season, or at least it took the most time to shoot, if nothing else, so it would be expensive. So I don't think they could probably keep this up. It's not a repeatable process, much like Barry having to, kill a good friend to get into the mood for an acting scene. But I would have watched that version of the show, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would have too. And I will say too, Mills, we see another one of Barry's kind of daydreams or dreams or fever dream, whatever you want to call it. It's something that the show has kind of gone to a lot, but each time they go there, it works. You know what I mean? It's not even like they're overusing it. It works every time. And I'm glad that they do it.
Yeah, they kind of mix it up too between, like, sometimes you can't tell what's a dream and what's a flashback. And that makes it interesting. Like an episode or two ago when you saw Barry, you think he's having a flashback and Gene walks in and everyone starts talking about Braveheart or whatever. It's a very interesting way. I like it better than doing narration or something like that, or maybe a straight flashback. It's kind of similar to what the Sopranos would do a little bit, where sometimes the dreams themselves would get a little bit muddled and you couldn't tell whether it was prophetic or a real dream or supposed to mean something from a psychological standpoint. What do you think, man? Is this the point where the show just said, all right, fuck it, the LAPD is just comic relief? They're not a serious threat anymore, because that's how it plays to me here. It's the way I guess I can make it work in my head. If they just said, like, fuck it, Janice Moss and Loach are the only 2 competent people they got, it's just, they're funny now.
I think so. I think they realize that they don't want to make that this constant thing, because then I think it almost becomes the entire show. and you're just worried about all the little stuff about, well, how can they get out of this one? That's really then the show, right? I think they want to be able to lean on some of the comical nature, some of the other characters, some of the other subplots, and not have it just be all about kind of Barry getting away with killing people, Barry and Fuchs getting away, right? So I think they thought that was the best way to kind of manage it.
And even in the end, Barry doesn't get caught necessarily. I mean, the cops catch him, but it's because Jim Moss tells the cops.
Right.
It's not the police that ultimately get him. Theoretically, you could have argued if Albert had elected to turn him in, that would have been the cops getting him, quote unquote. But it really just feels more like Barry gets caught because Fuchs fucked up more than anything else. I mean, sure, Barry goes in there to kill Jim, but I don't know. So I think it'll be interesting to see kind of minor season 4 a little bit. But do you think that kind of does it for the LAPD then? Is that kind of all we're getting now that he's in jail? Will the jail replace the LAPD more or less? It's kind of something we see more often.
I think he's going to get out after maybe one episode. So I think they might still kind of be in there. There'll be some sort of detective force, something, you know?
Nice. We don't want to get in full season 4 previews yet, but because we only ever see her in this episode, I have to ask, do we see Lily again before the end of the series?
My head says no, but my heart says yes. So I'm gonna go yes.
We should. It's probably fan service. You're right. You are 100% right, I believe. We will not, but I want to.
That's a wrap on Ronny Lily. Mills, remind us what's up next.
Up next is season 2, episode 6. The Truth has a ring to it.
You know, I love the show, but sometimes I question their definition of the word truth. I guess we'll find out soon enough. Thanks again for checking out the Barry podcast. We hope you enjoyed our show and that we added something to your overall Barry experience. Whether this is your first time watching or you're rewatching like us, we hope we're there for you and we added to it. Please remember, like, subscribe, comment, do it. Mills, anything else that we need to mention here?
I mean, there were a lot of ads and pivots. Don't worry. This is not an Excel spreadsheet kind of thing. You don't have to have pivot tables. You don't have to have formulas. The only formula you need is to go to @Barry Podcast to find us on social media. Search for Barry Podcast on wherever you get your pods to find us, or on the YouTube. Or if you want, just go to JoeBlowFootballShow.com. Brings you right to our YouTube channel. Thank you again for checking us out. I am Magnum Mills. He is Baby G. We are the co-presidents of the Mitch Fan Club, and we like to go out by bringing it in. 1, 2, 3.
Cusino!